Hi, it's me again. We're going to cover the lesson on working with color. In this lesson, we create and apply process and spot color swatches to objects, strokes, and text. The pre-flight panel helps ensure that colors output correctly. So this project turns out to be a really nice graphic design project. Okay, so I'm really excited for this chapter. It's probably one of my favorites in the entire book. At the beginning of this lesson, we have a couple of topics, okay? So I'm going to cover about managing color. And then following that is translating colors across devices, displaying images at full resolution, specifying color settings in InDesign, and proofing colors on screen. Okay, all I want you guys to do is just merely read those pages. You don't have to work any of those steps in the book. All right, so on the topic of just managing color, I just wanted to talk about this before we move on. Color management works to reproduce colors consistently across a range of output devices. This includes monitors, tablets, color printers, etc. InDesign gives you easy-to-use color management features to help you achieve good, consistent color. The unique color rendering abilities of a specific output device is known as its gamut or range. Adobe InDesign, Photoshop, and Illustrator use color numbers to describe color for each pixel. There's RGB, red, green, blue, and CMYK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Because each source and output device have its own specific gamut of colors that it is capable of reproducing, the aim of color translation is color accuracy across devices. So the data file or the lesson file that we're going to work with today is actually the 05_start. So I went ahead and got that opened prior to starting the lecture video, and I got that renamed and resaved as 05_color. So this is what the start file looks like for this lesson. It's kind of plain Jane, okay? I am looking at this in normal view so that we can see where the text boxes are and the graphics frames and everything like that. And this is what it's going to look like when you are done with the lesson. Okay, fully formatted. It looks really nice. I mean, just looking at what we're going to be doing, this really is kind of a nice little graphic design project. Okay, so I just went ahead and got those open and went ahead and resaved that. All right, so the next thing that we need to do is to talk about defining printing requirements. It is a good idea to use InDesign's pre-flight panel to alert you of anything in a document that does not follow the rules set in the pre-flight panel. So this can include size, fonts, colors, images, bleeds, etc. So I need to go to Window and Output and choose pre-flight. I could have also just clicked it from down here at the bottom of the document window as well. That's fine. Now I need to choose Define Profiles from the Pre-Flight Panel menu button. So it's the little lines up here in the upper right hand corner. And I'm going to choose to Define Profiles. So that's going to open up a dialog box for Pre-Flight Profiles. And then again, there is a Pre-Flight Profile menu, okay, which is another 3 lines. It's a button all its own. I'm going to go ahead and click that, and then that little drop out or pop out box is going to say Load Profile. I'm going to click that button, and inside our lesson folder, okay, for our lesson files, and with our start file, there should be a flyer profile. Okay, this particular file is actually an InDesign pre-flight profile. Okay, so its file extension is IDPP. All right, we've talked about IDMS, which is a snippet. We've talked about IDML, which is an InDesign markup language file. So we've talked about quite a few. So in today's lesson, we're introducing yet another type of InDesign file, and that extension is IDPP. So they have provided this for us. So we just need to select the flyer profile and then go ahead and click open. With this selected, you can see the profile name here. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. Now in our pre-flight panel right here, we need to make sure that we choose the correct profile. Right now, we don't have any errors, all right, because we are actually using our basic working profile. So in this drop down, we can come in and select flyer profile. What that's going to do is to check our open document against the profile that has been set up for us. So there's certain parameters that it's going to check for. Like I'd mentioned, it could be size, it could be certain fonts, colors, images, bleeds, all kinds of different things. So what it's doing once it loads the profile is it's checking the open document and running it against that to see if there are any errors. And actually there is. We now have one error. If I expand this here, it's telling me color space is not allowed on page 1. And if I expand that again, it's actually selecting the line. This line right here, this kind of a olive color, dark green line. The problem, it says under the info portion of the pre-flight panel, I love that it provides this info. The stroke uses RGB. And the required, it says the color space is not allowed. You can't have RGB. So this is a CMYK document and it's using an RGB color. So the fix is apply a swatch that uses a supported color space or mode, or edit the current swatch and specify a different color mode. Okay, so that's actually very, very simple. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out for right now. I don't need to have this open. So I want to make sure that this horizontal line is still selected. If it isn't, that's okay. You can go ahead and double click to select that horizontal line. I'm going to open up my swatches panel. Okay, and look here. If you didn't catch it, I'm going to point it out to you. If you hover over the green dark color that's listed here in the swatches panel, look, it says RGB. It is R67, G80, B37. And if we look right here, it should have a CMYK little icon color mode, and it actually shows RGB. So we need to fix this because this is the problem with this color right here, and that's the reason we have one error in our pre-flight panel. If I double click that open, it's going to be a very easy fix. All I need to do is change my color mode from RGB and switch this back out to CMYK. Once I do that, the color pretty much looks the exact same. And what it does is it converts those pixels, okay, and uses color numbers for CMYK instead of RGB. And then I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now, if I hover over here, CMYK has CMYK values, and my little icon now has the CMYK little icon for the color space for that. And look, if we look at the pre-flight panel at the bottom, we don't have any errors. So that was an easy fix. So problem fixed, and now we can move on. I'm going to do a Control S and save that real quick. Creating colors. You can create colors and color swatches and apply them to objects, strokes, and text in a layout. All right, we have the color panel, and that creates colors on the fly. My color panel is not open, and I will go ahead and show you what that looks like. Here is the color panel. So you can create colors on the fly with this. You have an eyedropper tool here that you can work with. And then, of course, you can choose HSB, Lab, CMYK, RGB, and even add whatever color you have into the swatches. So I wanted to show you that. We have our swatches panel, which is the primary way that we're going to actually add colors in today. And when it's in the swatches panel, it's something that we're going to use again and again. Okay, so that's really important. So the colors panel allows us to be able to create the color, but we have to save it as a swatch in the swatches panel if we want to use it again. We have our eyedropper tool. That is I on our keyboard. That's our keyboard shortcut. It's this one right here. It really does look like an eyedropper. All right, that allows us to select a color from an image. So we can, and we're going to do that. We're actually going to use that tool here in a little bit to select a yellow color from this flower down here in the lower left-hand corner. We have a color theme tool, which chooses among color themes generated from images or objects. You can create and select themes from Adobe Color. And you can also use CC libraries, okay, because that enables sharing of colors with Photoshop and Illustrator and with other members of your work group and with other documents. And the CC libraries, yours may not be open. Mine is, but I don't use it. Okay, you can create a new library, and that library is basically shareable across other Adobe applications. You can define color in several color modes. Our book lists this in this section, and I do want to cover those. I had already mentioned RGB, that's red, green, blue, CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. HSB, if you've never heard of that before, that's hue, saturation, brightness. And we have spot color modes. That's Toyo, Toyo. And then Pantone, that's another one. And spot color modes are used to add colors beyond the range of CMYK. I am going to use my selection tool, and I'm going to deselect out in my pasteboard because I want to make sure that I have nothing selected. So we're going to start work in our swatches panel. Okay, so we can do this in a number of ways. So you can actually create a new swatch at the bottom. Okay, so there is a new color group that you can make. There's a little folder down here. You can see swatch views. You can create a new swatch, so you can totally use this button. And then, of course, you can delete a selected swatch or a group. All right. Obviously, these ones come in none registration. Paper and black, you can't delete those. But ones that are added outside of those, you can see like you can't edit those or change those, and you can't delete those. But the one that came in as green dark, a CMYK color, you could delete that. We don't want to, but I just wanted to point it out. So I'm going to choose New Color Swatch from the Swatches panel menu button. When that dialog box opens, I am going to choose right here. You can actually leave the name with the color value and it would show up as a CMYK value. Okay. If not, you can name it whatever color. You could give it a name, a custom name if you wanted to. So from the color type, I'm going to choose spot. And then I'm going to come down here and choose Toyo, Toyo color finder. And it's actually going to load a CF. It's got color finder out here. And then, of course, it's got a whole range. You see that? Isn't that cool? All right, the one that they're actually going to have us choose is this one right here. So you can select it or you can just type it in 1, 0, 0, 0, and 2, which is the second one. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and click Add. All right, what that does is it takes that color finder with this number and adds it over in my swatches panel so that it's selectable and I'm able to apply that to elements over in my document. Okay, I don't want to have this added to my CC library. Now, if you did want to share it across other Adobe apps, by all means, you could click that. And then you could add it to your library. If you had a named library, it would be in your dropdown. I don't want to do that. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that deselected. I'm going to come back and open up my color panel. And then I'm going to come down here. So I'm going to grab my color panel. Move this out of the way. And with the eyedropper tool, we basically want to be able to sample the light yellow color on the flower. Now, depending on where you sample, this is going to change. All right, so you can click wherever to sample, but the book is great and they actually allow us to fine tune that light yellow color. So I can go ahead and give that to you. It's also in the book. So C is going to end up being 10. M is going to end up being 0. Y for yellow is going to end up being 40. Not a surprise there. And black is going to end up being 0. We don't want any black in this at all. So this is going to be a very pale yellow. Now remember, when we use the color panel, if we don't add it as a swatch, we can't use the color. I mean, even though it's listed over here and we can see it here and we can see it here and we can see it here, and if I had the properties panel open, you could see it there, we still have to add it to the swatches panel. So I can do that by going to the panel options button in the color panel and add this to the swatches. And it's just merely going to keep it the exact same color that we put it in. It's just also, oh, you know what? I need to edit that because it changed that. That's got to be a 0. There we go. Not that it really mattered, but I still wanted to leave that at 0. You don't want any black when you're dealing with the yellow. All right, so now we have this over here. So we've used the color panel to create a color, and we have our eyedropper tool, and we sampled. We were able to fine tune that. And in order to keep that as a color that's added to our swatches panel that we can use again and again, we have to use this button right here and add this over here to our swatches. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my selection tool so that I'm not using my eyedropper tool to accidentally sample anything else. I'm going to go ahead and click on at the bottom, double click on the new swatch button. It's at the bottom of the swatches panel. Oh my goodness, I did one too many. All right, and basically what happens is that it creates a duplicate. So all we have to do in order to change that is just double click that open, and then we can change the values to whatever we need. So they're going to give us the values of C for 25, M of 75, Y of 0, and K of 0, which turns into be kind of a magenta light purple color. And then I'm going to click OK for that, and you can see that listed here. Now I'm going to use a keyboard modifier and actually alt click, and it's going to open up the same one again. Okay, so it's a new swatch color. And this time I'm going to create a new process CMYK color. See, I'm going to leave this process CMYK. And I'm going to change this to 90. C is 90. M is going to be 70. Y is going to be 30. And K is going to be 0. And I'm going to click Add. And I'm going to click Done. So that gives us a nice blue color. So see, there's always like multiple ways to do the same thing. So for this last one, I'm going to click on the swatches panel menu button, and I'm going to go ahead and choose to create a new color swatch. It's going to open the same dialog box, not really any different than Alt clicking on the add button from the bottom. The values they're going to give us for this is C is 65, M is 25, Y is 100, and K is 0. I'm going to click add and then done. So we've added a color finder TOYO color, okay, which is a spot color. We sampled the yellow color here and fine-tuned it. We have like a purplish pink color. We created a blue color, and then now we have a lighter green color, kind of an olive like light green color. When you get to this portion in the text about using spot and process colors, make sure that you guys include that when you are reading along. It includes some really good information in there. Applying color. So now we have created all of these things. So we've got several swatches that we have created. One thing that I want to point out to you, all of these are CMYK. So if I hover, they have the little CMYK icon indicating, except for this one, okay? And it actually lets us know that it's a spot color. All right, so you can kind of see that, the difference here. Okay, applying colors. Once you create color swatches, you can apply them to objects, text, etc. You can use your swatches panel, control panel, properties panel, CSS libraries panel, as well as you can actually drag and drop swatches onto objects. So you can grab a hold of them here with your left mouse button and drag and drop them. You can copy color from an object with the eyedropper tool, which is what we just did. And you can specify colors and styles. All right, so we've got a lot of ways to apply color. So you can even select something like text and then use your eyedropper tool and come over and sample the purple color and it would change it. Okay, so there's lots of ways to get color applied to a background, a fill, a stroke. All right, the stroke and fill box is found in multiple places. It is in the tools panel. Okay, it is in the swatches panel. It's in the color panel, which I've already closed. It's in the control panel. And it will help you to specify if you want to apply color to a selection's stroke, which is an outline, or the fill, which is the background. If color is accidentally applied to the part of an object that is wrong, make sure you check your stroke and fill. Okay, so what I mean by that is this happens all the time. It happens to me too, and you'll probably see me, you'll probably see it happen. All right, so I'm going to apply something, to 75. And I accidentally come over here and select a color thinking that I'm getting the stroke instead of the fill. So this is the fill and this is the stroke. So I could accidentally apply color to the wrong part. Okay, so if you do that, immediately go and check your stroke and fill. And that's usually where the problem is. And it's a very easy fix. I want to be able to see my page on the screen. Okay, so I'm going to select the whole entire background on the document. And from the swatches panel, I am going to apply this olive green swatch color. Okay, when I hover over it, it gives me the exact same name as the value that it's listed. So it listed the value with the CMYK numbers. So you want to make sure it is C65, M25, Y100, K0. So I'm going to apply that. However, that is really dark. at the top of the swatches panel, we can adjust the tint. And they are going to have us bring that down to about 40. Okay. If you have to, you can highlight that and just type it in if you can't get it exact. All right, now that's more doable. If you're looking at the book, don't worry. If you're looking at the book and the book is actually a lot darker, don't worry about it. Some of the colors when it printed in the book are a lot darker than what we are actually seeing on screen. Okay, so I just wanted to be able to tell you that, because when you look at what's in the book and then you're applying it on screen, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that looks like bright pink, but it isn't. Okay. So don't worry about it. You can always look at your end file. As long as your CMYK values are correct, follow the book and what it looks like on your screen, even if the screenshots in the book appear to be darker. All right, so we applied this lighter green color here, this lighter olive green, and we did apply a tint, which is at 40%. With my selection tool, I'm going to apply that light yellow color to the Urban Oasis Garden text box. So I'm going to select this, and then I'm going to apply this light color right here. The box that contains 75, we need to apply that magenta kind of light purpley color. And I am going to give you the CMYK value so you make sure you're getting the right one. It is the C25, M75, Y0, and the K is 0. So we want to apply that. If we look at the screenshot in the book, it actually looks like they applied the CF, the spot color. It is like really bright pink, but this is the color that it's actually supposed to be. Orchard Clinic at the top, the text, we need to make sure that it is being applied to the text and not the fill. That's actually really important. Now on this one, we do want that spot color, which is the CF10002. The Toyo color, I call it, the TOYO color. I'm going to do a Control S and save what I have so far. Applying colors to strokes. The stroke panel lets you apply a border to lines, frames, and text. Now, we have used the stroke panel. We used it in the last lesson when we were working with objects. Remember when we drew the line with the line tool, and then we added like the solid square and the barbed kind of arrowhead on it. We used the stroke panel there too. Okay, so now we'll be able to use that again. Applying colors to text. You will need to use your type tool to select text and then apply color to it using the swatches panel and the control panel. But I wanted to point out something else. Our book may cover this, but I want to make sure I include it in the notes just in case they don't. Here's something that will help you make sure that you are applying. If you have a text box that has a fill, for instance, we have Urban Oasis Gardens that has a separate fill, and then the Urban Oasis Gardens text itself, okay, something entirely different. You want to make sure when you are selecting something, you're getting the right thing, whether you're doing the background as a fill or the text, okay? I wanted to point out to you over here in the tools panel that there are two little buttons right here. Now, if your tools panel is in one column, you may not be able to see it. I'm just being honest, okay? My tools panel is 2-column. There is a button here that is formatting effects container. That, when you select that, it's going to get the container, okay? Or the frame itself so that you can change the color. Notice when I do that, that this button is selected and I just change the color. You can see it here, you can see it here, you can see it here, and you can see it here, okay? And you can also see it in apply color right here because my tools panel is 2-column. Now I'm going to Control Z and change that back. What I wanted to point out is that next to that is the formatting effects text. So if you wanted to get the text here, you could select that button without using your type tool. And notice that that type was not selected with the type tool. All I did was select this formatting effects text button, that is J on your keyboard, and I clicked this color right here and it applied it. So that's not the only way to do it by using the type tool and selecting. I actually prefer that button right here because it guarantees me I'm going to get the text every time. Highlighting, it may not. Okay, so I am going to Control Z and undo that for right now. In the book, I'm not going to do this, but in the book, they are going to have you actually apply this blue color to the line here. And hold on, I'm going to Control Z that. They're going to have you apply the blue color to this line. And then they're also going to have you put it as a stroke around this image. And then I think it's going to end up being maybe the stroke around the $75 text. But then as you move along in the lesson, they're actually going to have you change all of that through like find and replace. Everywhere where you end up using this blue color, they're going to have you change it to this green dark. So I'm not going to do that. All right, so I'm just going to make sure that everything that I have is the green dark. And so that's really important as we kind of move along. Okay, so and I want to show you what I mean. If we take a look at this, our end file, we have the dark green on our line here. We have it, I think it's on our date by default. And then it is right here around the edge of this. So where they originally have you do blue, when you work the lesson, you can go ahead and put the blue in there because like a page or two after that, they're going to show you exactly how to find and change color swatches. It's like a find and replace, okay, which is a very neat feature. But for the sake of time, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it. So down here on the exterior of this picture right here in the middle, we do need to make sure that we have the dark green for our stroke. And I'm going to Control Z that. And I'm going to make sure that my stroke is the dark green around here. Okay, and when I click off of it, you can see the dark green around the edge. So all of what we're doing is going to end up being the dark green. So I just kind of wanted to explain that because when you work the book, they're going to walk you through changing all that to blue, and then they're going to have you change it to the dark green. So for the sake of time, I'm just telling you that, and I'm going to leave mine that green dark swatch. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and make sure all of mine are. So my horizontal line is eventually going to be the green dark swatch. And then the second picture on that first row, you want to make sure that your stroke is going to end up with the green dark. And then the type tool, we can go ahead and select the date. And I did that and changed it to green dark. Again, you're going to do this with the find and replace. I'm just letting you know everything on the page right now that will end up being that color swatch. And then the grow, maintain, and rebloom. I'm going to go ahead and click on, now see, if you use your type tool, you can do it this way, but you also have to come up here and make sure that you're getting the right color. And I'm going to go ahead and click off of this so you can see. All right, so I applied it using the type tool this time. In Urban Oasis Gardens, I'm going to use my formatting effects text instead. And then I'm going to apply the green dark swatch. And then over here on the 75, I'm going to go ahead and select my formatting effects container. You can also highlight that with the type tool. That's perfectly fine. We're going to do, I think it is the lighter green fill, but on the stroke, it is going to be the green dark, and it's going to end up being a 1 point, I believe, and it is. So you can actually see it better, because without that green dark swatch, 1 point stroke around that 75, it's a little hard on the eyes actually. The contrast between the green and that purplish pink color, the contrast isn't real great, but that stroke really helps that. Working with tint swatches. A tint is a screened lighter version of a color. Well, we definitely know that for sure, because whenever we applied this color right here to our background, it was really, really dark. And so we applied 40% tint, which kept that color the exact same. It just lightened it up. Now you can create a tint from the new tint swatch option located in the swatches panel menu. Okay, but the tint slider is also available in the control panel. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways that, again, you can do this. It's not just in one place. Okay, so if you make a change to the tint itself, okay, the parent color, okay, so let me explain it this way. Whenever we create a tint, and we're getting ready to do that, when we create a tint based on a color, if we change our mind and change anything about that original color that the tint is based off of, the tint is going to update when the original color is changed. Okay, so I hope that kind of clarifies. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to select the pink color that's already here. It kind of looks purpley to me, but it is C25, M75, Y0, and K0. And from the swatches panel menu, I'm going to click to create a new tint swatch. Okay. All of this is grayed out, and it's just saying, all right, so what color do you want that to be? And I believe they're going to have us put 65% in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and click add and done. And notice here that this is the tint and it's a duplicate. And what makes it the tint is because it has 65% at the end, which indicates to us that this is the tinted swatch. Okay. All right. So I'm going to select, you know what? Look what I did. I had that selected when I created that swatch. So I am going to undo that. Make sure that I'm deselected. My bad. And I'm going to create that again because it actually applied to what I had selected. See, I had to catch my own self. Okay, there we go. Nothing was selected, and now I created the swatch. So I'm going to select the container or the frame containing the $75, and then I can go ahead and change this to the lighter color. Working with gradients. A gradient is a graduated blend between two or more colors or between tints of the same color. Gradient options include either linear or radial. You create a gradient from the new gradient swatch option located in the swatches panel menu. Gradients are defined by a series of color stops on the gradient ramp. A stop is a point at which each color is at full intensity between the gradients. It is identified by a square below the gradient ramp. It has at least 2 color stops, and you can add additional color stops if you wish. And then the gradient swatch tool is G on your keyboard. And it's this one right here. Gradient swatch tool is G, and this lets you change the direction of a gradient and its beginning and ending point. So now we're actually going to create a gradient. So from the swatches panel menu, if we click into that, we have new gradient swatch. The new gradient swatch dialog box is going to open for us. And so we can just go ahead and name this. They tell us to name it pink and then just kind of a pink yellow. And the type that we want for this is going to be linear. And what we need to do is to select this first color stop. And we actually can use the color that we have. So we can use the CMYK color that we have here. We need to change the color stop to our swatches and scroll down and find this pink color. And the location needs to be at 5%. Oops, we need to go back into that. I'm not done. All right, and then we need to select the second color stop, which is right here. Make sure swatches is listed under the stop color. And then we're going to choose the yellow color. And then we need to make sure that our location is 70%. Don't hit enter because it'll make it go okay. All right, so this is perfect, what we see right here. And then, of course, you can leave preview. Now I can click OK, or you can press enter. Here is our gradient. It's already created for us. So with our selection tool, if we click the text frame with grow and maintain and rebloom, we can just click to apply our pink yellow linear gradient. If nothing else, that is what it's going to look like. Now, if we tap G on our keyboard, that's going to give us our gradient swatch tool. And the only thing that I really wanted to point out about that is depending on where you click and drag from, where you start clicking and where you end your click and how far that line is going to basically dictate to you where your gradient starts and ends and how far in your color is going to be. So that's the gist of it. It's very easy to use and very user-friendly. So I'm going to go ahead and use my selection tool, and I am just going to leave mine the way that it is. Okay, I think that's the way that they end up having it anyway. I'm going to do a Control S, and I'm going to match this against the end file for this lesson. And it's pretty much the exact same. So this is what yours is going to look like. I think I am just in preview mode here. Okay, so the only difference on this was my linear. They just played around with the gradients and did it this way. So however you want to do your gradient is totally fine with me. Okay. So this is what the end file looks like when you're done. This is what mine looks like when I'm done. So minus a few steps in here of originally applying this blue color to the line and around the stroke of this image, and I believe the stroke around 75, and then using the find and replace color swatch feature to change all of that blue back to this green dark. I've pretty much done everything. Okay. I would like for you guys, though, to make sure that you are working those steps in the book because there are some things in here that they're going to explain that I maybe didn't explain to the fullest extent. So, even though my lecture video is pretty thorough this time, please make sure that you're still pausing and reading through the lesson and working each step in the book. All right. If you guys have any questions, don't hesitate, just let me know.